Charles, this might be one of the most disgusting things ever involving a U.S. president. How are you?
I'm great, Jason. But I'm wondering, I thought when we discussed this poster, it was going to be Daddy Diapers.
Well, that's a sequel. He does need the diapers, but this is the Daddy Diaries. I didn't see this movie. This is from the Nanny Diaries, but I've definitely heard of it. And it has Scarlett Johansson in it, so it's probably good. But actually, Charles, before we talk about the incredible revelations, really one of the most troubling things ever to be confirmed about a U.S. president, I just wanted to talk a little bit about something that's unfolding on Twitter. I was down there at the courthouse yesterday for the Trump trial. I've been trying to get some information to important people who can do stuff with it. Specifically, I wanted to alert them to this relationship between Michael Cohen and Felix Sater. And thankfully, I finally got Laura Loomer's attention, and Laura put out a tweet about this just an hour ago. Let's see. Laura has incredible power on Twitter. Here's a thread she's got. And let's see. Yeah, it's already got 15,000 views in an hour. And for me, I could put up a tweet and it might not get that much attention in a day. My sincere hope is that Donald Trump and Alina Habba and people that can do something with this information will see it, because there's a lot of evidence that indicates that Michael Cohen might in fact be working for the FBI and perhaps has been doing that for a long time.
Yeah, again, the contrast here is truly stunning. I mean, here we have a tale of two diaries, right? Or a tale of two files. In the case of the Ashley Biden thing, we were told by the full panoply of idiots in the corporate-owned media that this is nothing. These are musings. There's nothing to it. You know, and then it was objectionable that would happen to it. Blah blah blah. And at the end of the day, now the thing that's not screaming off the front page from the Me Too people is Joe Biden, according to his own daughter, his troubled daughter, may have taken showers with him when she was, an adolescent, maybe, a teenager. I mean, this is crazy land stuff.
Yeah.
On top of what we know about Hunter Biden and his crazed life. This is a president who has now sent out a crazy video where people are saying that the 13 or 14-second video has a whole bunch of cuts in it. So he couldn't even get through 13 seconds or 14 seconds talking about the debates, the non-debates that he wants to have with Trump, which will be stacked and only moderated by regime-friendly people. Trump won't be able to talk. So we have, on the one hand, the mainstream media, corporate-owned media, doing everything that it can to protect this crazed person who, in a fair country, could not pass a high-level security vetting, in my view, the president, given all that we know now about the Ashley Biden diary and Tara Reid, and who knows if there isn't another Ashley Biden diary. There are some very strange pictures involving Hunter and Joe. And so you contrast all that with the Steele dossier. And there, the top team of the Hillary Clinton campaign, Hillary herself, her lawyer Mark Elias, and other, procure rubbish that still is flying around the corporate-owned media, still arguing that Trump is a Russian pawn. I mean, the contrast here is just stunning. And from afar, thinking about it, I mean, the National Enquirer and even the Weekly World News, if that's still being published, has more credibility than the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, and these other places. How can you protect this man, Joe Biden, in this way, in these many ways? I mean, this is somebody who destroyed the sacrifices of our brave men and women in Afghanistan, just destroyed them, have destroyed the country of Afghanistan. He's in the process of destroying Ukraine, is destroying America by opening up our southern and northern borders, letting terrorists back in. Crime is rampant. And the mainstream media wants to protect this doofus. I mean, if Trump had said to Biden in 2020, look, we're only going to have 2 debates, and I get to pick the venues. There's not going to be an audience, and I'm going to turn your microphone off while I'm talking. I mean, what would the mainstream media have done? And here they're just like lambs. They're saying, "Oh yeah, it's fine, no problem."
Now, Charles, may I point out something about this stupid Joe Biden video? Take you a little bit to NYU Film School for a moment, because this is doing something that you're not supposed to do. Normally, you will notice when I tell you this, that you don't cut back and forth between an identical shot like this, where one is slightly closer than the other. This is kind of a jump cut, and it flies in the face of the purpose and flow of video editing. Normally, you're going to cut between maybe like a wide shot of him seated at a desk where we see the whole room, and then a close-up of maybe chest up, where it's clearly deliberate that we've gone to a different shot and for a purpose to maybe, we establish he's in the room with a wide shot, we cut to a close-up, we then cut to a shot on the side that reveals something else. This jumping back and forth, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, that this is intentionally done not to make this video better, but because they probably just record this guy for an hour at 4K and then say, well, we'll just punch in and make it seem like a separate shot, and then we'll cut up all of his words and come up with 14 seconds of intelligible stuff. And it's just so amateur and obvious and bad, it's crazy.
Right, and this with all the resources in the White House, and also I think it's pathetic for an 81-year-old president of the United States, supposed leader of the free world, to treat a former president in the way that the Biden White House has treated Trump, and then on this video, make my day, pal. I hear you're free on Wednesdays. I mean, this is a guy who, in a fair fight, would have been KO'd a long time ago.
Oh, he means because court is not in session on Wednesday? Oh, my God.
Right.
So he gins up this ridiculous prosecution. I mean, this is the standard stuff. This is what these people do. Right. They gin up ridiculous nonsense and then spend all their energy blaming you for ridiculous nonsense and then say, oh, look at the ridiculous nonsense.
Right. But the good news is, and there is good news, that the public isn't buying it, and key demographics and voter groups are not buying the bullshit. I mean, it just, if you're sitting in a bubble and every week or day your family gets some new inflow of illicit cash because you've been selling various offices that you've been holding for decades, you don't care about inflation. You're worried about, are you going to get a mansion on Martha's Vineyard as nice as Obama's? So Biden is in this bubble. Yellen's in a bubble. The morons in the Biden cabinet are all in bubbles. They don't truly feel the pain. And as we've been saying since the very beginning, inflation is the cruelest tax of all, because once you get into an inflationary environment, businesses will just raise taxes. They raise prices rather. It is in a competitive world. You can't just willy-nilly raise your prices, but if the buying population has come to accept inflation, then it roars ahead, and it's very tough to stop without pushing up interest rates. And that's the second cut. When you push up interest rates above the rate of inflation, which is what we're going to have to do eventually, people who have stretched to buy houses and cars and have extended their credit cards are going to get crushed, if not bankrupted. So
but that's
this
a good
is a
point,
team.
Though. You've noticed something, Charles, that I've now noticed as well. You said there was some store that just closed abruptly. Like what you're saying, right. I have experienced. These companies need to raise their prices. But just even at the supermarket, I've noticed that certain things went from like $5 to $9, and I wasn't buying them at all for $9. And now I see they've adjusted it down to $7.50. And it makes me think that these companies, like you just said, they are forced to raise these prices, but then even raising the prices, they're saying, holy crap, nobody is buying our stuff now. We need to make less profit. And then eventually that might mean, right. Well, we can't do business anymore. And lots of things might start going out of business.
As they are. I mean, Restaurant chains are closing, retail stores are
Oh
closing.
yeah.
Um, and really, the government inside the United States and inside most of the EU countries, Japan and also Japan and Korea, some other places, government has gotten to be so ginormous that it's acting against the interests of the resident populations. I mean, when business people decide that before making a capital investment, they have to consult with 25 ninnies, led by Yellen and Booty Juice or whatever that fucking guy's name is. These other idiots, Podesta and other people around the equation, not to mention the local regulators and zoning boards and all this kind of stuff. Business activity stops and capital leaves this country and goes somewhere else. And, unless a new team comes back in, hopefully it's a Trump team, and really Trump supporting folks in the House and the Senate. If a new team comes in, it's going to take, my estimation, at least 2 years just to get back to ground zero, because talk is cheap. And it'll be tougher for Trump to actually deliver on this, to punish these NGOs who've been used as conduits for dirty money to pay off politicians, to pad dynastic political families. That process is going to take more than 2 years alone. Then to go after these crooks, I noticed, it sounds crazy, but I noticed the lawsuit involving the U.S. Virgin Islands, and now allegations that the Stacey Plaskett, who's a horrible human being, may have been protecting Epstein. The rot in and around Washington, D.C., New York City, L.A., Chicago, and elsewhere of people engaged in dodgy activities. Madison Cawthorn spoke of some of them. Who knows how deep that rot is? Who knows how aggressively people will fight against being exposed, as it were. So let's assume Trump wins with a mandate. He's going to, A, he's not getting younger, and B, he's going to have to work very, very hard. And at the end of the day, in 2028, there's still going to be a lot more work to do. So, but Biden, I mean, at this point, he's like the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz. I mean, he's just melting before our eyes. And shame on the various people who insist on propping him up.
Yeah. No, it's people are, there's so much going on right now, Charles. People are in the comments responding to what you were saying. Red Lobster is announcing sudden bankruptcy. Bed and Bath went out of business. So all these big retail brands are kind of tanking. The other thing that people were concerned about, and I'm not trying to be all over the place here, but there is a lot of stuff for us to address in addition to the diary. The prime minister of the Slovakian prime minister, he's in a life-threatening condition after an assassination attempt. You know what this made me think of, Charles? Norm Eisen was the ambassador to the Czech Republic, and obviously there's some tension, I would think, between the Czech Republic and Slovakia, right? It used to be Czechoslovakia, and now it isn't.
Well, actually, the Slovakian prime minister, I was just looking this up before we went on air, he was a fierce critic of globalism, of the Ukraine war, of the COVID response. And so, we have this piece out yesterday from this moron who runs GCHQ, speculating from her perch as the head of GCHQ, which gives her, in theory, instant credibility because she should know most of the secrets. She and others are speculating that these rising instances of factories burning and exploding or whatever could be the work of Russian provocateurs. Was this the work of Ukrainian provocateurs or of our own deep state? I think that's a fair question. So. And really, with these intelligence agencies come back, our own especially, and say, we have concluded X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I'm less interested in what they've concluded and more interested in what they explored.
Right. What's the evidence?
So far, what I see, what scenarios did you consider? On Nord Stream 2, until they come back and explain to us what really happened with Nord Stream 2, I'm really not interested in the speculation of some GCHQ, forgive me for saying this, wench. I just don't care. I mean, GCHQ, and in particular, I think our own, we have somebody who was CIA station chief during the whole 2016 campaign and then went into, is back, I think, in the mix now. There's a lot of explaining to come out of the UK about what they have really been doing to protect Democrats, to protect Clinton, to protect Obama, to protect now Biden. There's a lot of explaining to do. I think too many foreign governments are intervening in our own politics. And Katie barred the door. I mean, I think after 1945 in particular, decided that a major export of the United States would be meddling in foreign elections. I mean, the time has come to recognize that there's no point in doing that.
Well, right? You're not only no point, it makes the whole situation worse.
Right. I mean, nobody wants to feel, I mean, Hillary and her grudge match against Trump, the Russians are responsible for her defeat. How long is she's going to go to her grave complaining about that? Probably be her dying words. You know, Trump was a Russian agent. Broke. But I mean, nations around the world, the important ones, should be very interested in letting the people alone, their citizens, decide elections. Otherwise, elections are meaningless.
Yeah. Charles, I can see in the background there, you've got the new portrait of the British monarch in your hotel room.
I mean, was this the person who did this colorblind? I mean, this is
it this guy in the ugly shirt?
Well, I mean, I see an all red painting with, King Charles's maw in the center of it. I mean, does this guy not have a full palette of paint?
Oh. This is the artist in the crazy shirt. He doesn't even put on a tie to meet the King of England. I mean, that's stupid.
I mean, that art, honestly, I look at that, this guy, if he had been in my fifth grade art class where the teacher said I was hopeless, the teacher would have probably said, actually, Charles, there's somebody in the class who's more hopeless than you are. This guy, you got a reprieve. This is ridiculous, this painting. I wouldn't pay his fee if he delivered that painting to me.
The good news, Charles, is that he's likely to remain well preserved if he's survived the carbonite freezing. I mean, that is the stupidest painting I've seen in a long time. Doesn't he look like Han Solo frozen in carbonite from Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, I mean, what is the subtle message here? Why all the red?
People are saying it's satanic, and
yeah,
I think I believe that. Why did they just paint him standing in Buckingham Palace wearing a king suit and make it a regular painting?
Or go back to the coronation, which I think even John Cleese ridiculed, where I don't know how much of it you watched, but you'll remember that people will remember that they had a litany of now he's going to put on this. Now he'll put on this. Now this, now that, now something else. And before, by the time he was done, he was wearing like 50 pounds of crap.
I did not watch
this is the best you could paint him. This is like painting him in his underwear or his pajamas.
It's terrible.
It's ridiculous.
I'm surprised they showed it. Like you bring this back to the king and he would say, this is the painting, get the hell out of here and hire somebody else.
Off with your head.
Yeah. Yeah. People are also saying...
Fauci, bad theater?
This is theater, Rand
Bad
Paul.
Theater and bad art.
People also think that it's the guy from Ghostbusters 2.
That painting is better. At least there's more
detail. But okay, so let's just go back for a second to the diary, Charles, because, it was interesting. When I was looking this up this morning, they're saying like, oh, this letter. What basically has happened for people who might not have been paying attention is that this woman, Anne, what is her name? Hines?
Amy Harris.
Has been criminally charged for basically stealing the diary. I think it's that she sold it. It's maybe selling stolen property. But the point is, Ashley Biden, just a few weeks ago or a week or two ago, wrote a letter to the judge in the case, which is Annalisa Torres, who presided over Goodman v. Boozy and made decisions that caused me to believe she either can't read things on a page or is in the same kind of program as Valerie Caproni, who we already know is corrupt and has been accused of Congress of breaking the law thousands of times. She has ruled in favor of Ashley Biden, but I got the letter. It's, they said, obtained by the New York Times, like it's some kind of big secretive thing. You can get it off of Pacer. I will admit it was a little difficult to find, but it's a public document. So we're going to go into this and read the details of exactly what Ashley Biden said to the court when people join us in the First Amendment Forum in about 10 minutes from now on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And Charles, everybody who complains, which is a small number of people, they say, this is information, it should be free. And it is free. People can go pay for a Pacer subscription and figure out how to search for this stuff and find it for free. But if people want to support an independent news show that does this stuff for them and watch a professionally produced program, they're doing that on the sponsor exclusive channels. But we'll get into the details of that letter. It's a pretty outrageous ruling, in my opinion, Charles.
Well, here it's important to remember that what I see in front of me is a typed letter that is signed and first by her. Is that signed by her? That's signed by her lawyer,
right?
And the thing that's attached may or may not be signed by Ashley.
It is electronically signed by Ashley Biden, so that counts as a signature.
Right.
But
so
other lawyers have done that to me. Put my signature on stuff that I didn't sign.
Right. So we don't know exactly who concocted this letter. And we'll talk in the First Amendment section a little bit about Roberta Kaplan, but she's not exactly an objective, nonpartisan person in this. So
definitely not. She's
but
one
just
of these
what
lawyers.
We can say, what we can say, and I think parents in the room, particularly fathers of daughters, can relate well to the statement that I'm going to make as a father of a daughter, that you don't go showering, even with a 5-year-old daughter, let alone a teenager, as a father. You just don't do that. And it's not a close call, right? And if he was doing this when he was married to Jill, Dr. Jill, I mean, how did she allow this to happen? I mean, this is depravity, frankly.
Yeah.
And I'm not a prude. It's just that you don't do that. In the same way, a mother shouldn't be showering with a 12-year-old boy, her son. You just don't do that.
No.
And this is but one icky. I mean, Victor Davis Hanson, who I know, his vocabulary is large, and so that limits the reach of some of his writing. But he has a piece in Zero Hedge that is just it's a long piece, and I'd say at the end of the second paragraph, Joe Biden's reputation is in tatters. And really, that we would have to be here. People would say, well, this trial and Stormy Daniels is disgusting. Hang on. Joe Biden stiffing little kids, girls, making comments, inappropriate comments, showering with his daughter, molesting at his alleged Tara Reade, and who knows how many other staffers. And really, on the Tara Reade piece, I'm jumping around a little bit. It's bad enough. It's horrible if it's true that Biden did to her what he may have done. But what is worse in the climate of Me Too is that when Tara came forward, Biden's staff basically intimidated her to the point where she felt she had to flee the country. I mean, I thought we were supposed to believe all accusers. And here, you're championing Joe Biden, letting him schoolyard taunt the president, who's in the middle of a trial in New York. Well, a trial in New York, which should never have happened in the first place. In America, you should not bring anybody into a courtroom, force that person to pay for defense lawyers if you haven't even asserted an actual crime in the complaint. I mean, shame on the New York judicial system for allowing this thing into Merchant's courtroom, and shame on the judge for continuing this farce. There is no crime alleged in this, no specific crime. Therefore,
Yeah.
there can't be elements of the crime, and they haven't proven anything. This judge should repudiate the whole process, as Jonathan Turley suggests. We'll see what he does.
He's not going to do that. It was interesting because I've been watching Norm Eison's Twitter feed quite closely, and loading him up with phone calls where he's refusing to talk about Felix Sater and stuff like that. And Norm is saying stuff like, "Oh, Cohen just proved beyond a reasonable doubt." And I said, "What did he prove beyond a reasonable doubt?" And he's like throwing out legal terms like that, but he's not actually addressing what the crime is, as you're saying. He's just going on and on about nonsense. But Charles, we are at the end of our intro segment here and about to begin our journey into the First Amendment Forum. I'm interested to read this letter, and I think people are going to find it interesting as well. If people aren't following me on Twitter, I hope they will. I had this very interesting conversation with Andrew Giuliani outside the courthouse yesterday. He's always quite nice to me. I like Andrew Giuliani. And he seemed to be very interested in what I was laying down. This was a lot more straightforward than the Twitter coup story I tried to share with him last time. And hopefully Rudy Giuliani and Alina Habba and the rest of Trump's defense team and lawyers and advisors will hear about this. But people are going to be able to join us in just 5 minutes. We're going to read this Ashley Biden letter. We're going to talk more about this incredible travesty of justice that's going on as the most incompetent and disgusting individual who has ever posed as president continues to destroy the country. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be right back.